Welcome to the WellLIFE Podcast. Today, you are in for a treat as we discuss the secret language of the heart, unlocking music's power to heal. Our special guest is Barry Goldstein, and he's more than a Grammy Award-winning composer. He's a true pioneer in the world of sound and healing. With over 30 years' experience, Barry has mastered the art of blending scientific innovation with musical creativity, proving that music isn't just entertainment, it's medicine for the mind and body. From collaborating with visionary leaders like Dr. Daniel Amen, Dr. Joe Dispenza, and Dave Asprey to coining the term acousticeuticals, Barry is redefining how we think about the sound's role in health. His groundbreaking compositions are used in hospitals and wellness spaces to reduce stress, promote healing, and enhance emotional well-being. So if you're ever wondered how music can calm your mind, heal your body, or even amplify your personal or professional mission, or if you're just curious about the emerging science of therapeutic sound, stay tuned because this is an episode you won't want to miss. Let's grow. Welcome to the WellLIFE, a podcast dedicated to embracing all aspects of healthy living. Going beyond diet and fitness, we'll cover a broad spectrum of wellness, bringing together the best in holistic living and mindful practices so you can create a well-rounded approach to a healthier lifestyle. I'm your host, Sheila Alston, and I'm the founder of a wellness real estate marketing company called Healthy Home Media. And our co-host is Pamela Taines. She's a seasoned brand strategist and content creator with over 30 years of experience, launching market-leading companies in the health and wellness space. Together, we are on a mission to help you take charge of your health. So we'll be bringing you everything from alternative healers to healthy home strategies so you can learn and experience different healing modalities for yourself and know what to do in your home environment to thrive. True well-being isn't about losing weight. It's your birthright. And it's about discovering that you are in charge and in control of what you bring into your home and into your life. Get ready to learn something new each and every episode. Tune into the WellLIFE, where nothing feels better than healthy, vibrant living. Let's grow. Great. Well, thank you so much. I've got Barry here, and I'm so excited to be talking to you, Barry. Thank you again for coming on the show.
I'm so happy to be here with you guys and excited to talk with you.
And Pam's here too. We're going to be alternating questions, and I'm just so excited to learn about the healing power of sound. So you've had an incredible career blending music and healing, and I just want to talk about, what inspired you to explore the therapeutic applications of sound?
Well, I was mostly my own experiment. So like so many other people who get into various, healing modalities, I was basically an experiment with myself because I had a great degree of burnout as a music producer in New York City, type A personality, and literally taking 100 hours, to produce a 4-minute song. Mm-hmm. And it really started to wear on me. So I started kind of reversing my methodology and instead of spending all that time on a singular song, I asked myself, what would happen if I just allowed myself, instead of composing music, to decompose to it? Mm-hmm. And I did some research. I found out that our heart at a relaxed state beats at about 60 beats per minute. And my thought was, well, if I could target my heart at a relaxed state, maybe I can re-engage with my love for music and get out of music as being a job. So I started taking these journeys where I would just let the music come through for an hour at a time, not knowing what I was doing. And then I started getting into these really, really meditative states while I was in the compositional process. Little did I know, because at that time there wasn't a lot of talk about it. What was happening was I was moving into a state of heart coherence. Yeah. My brain waves were slowing down. And literally, I was moving into what's called the parasympathetic state, where our bodies are more conducive to healing and detoxing and all those great things. But it started with me, and then I started sharing that music with other people in my life. And, we started seeing some testimonials and endorsements for how they were being used. And that was really it. It led to this whole other path, because initially, my background was as producing house music, hip hop music. I co-produced a Grammy Award-winning track for Best Rock Instrumental with Les Paul, the guy who invented the electric guitar. So this was not exactly the path that I thought I'd be going in. 35 years ago when I started this. So that's a short synopsis.
Wow,
What
that's amazing.
story. Yeah. So it sounds like your composing style went from charging up the sympathetic nervous system to kind of just making everyone relaxed and parasympathetic. That's very cool. So is all your composing oriented that way now, Barry?
It's not for me, and I'm sure we'll get into this later too when we're making suggestions for people, but I always ask the question like, where am I now? Or where's the listener now that I'm targeting? Where do they want to go? And then what piece of music is going to take them there? So music's a bridge. And so it's not like a one size fits all or a one genre fits all. So I compose a lot of different styles of music, from very meditative music to very up inspirational music, epic music, music for yoga and Tai Chi and movement. Because my background was so diverse as a music producer, that it's easy for me to create a melting pot and a recipe based on what's needed.
Oh my gosh, that's so awesome. So do you think that all the types of music you're making are getting people in that parasympathetic, maybe you can touch on the heart coherence and stuff that you just mentioned.
Yeah, like I said, like some of them are targeting that and others are not.
Okay.
So if we're targeting someone to move into a more meditative or relaxed state, or even a state where they're getting better sleep at night or winding down at night, a lot of the research for that shows that that's really the sweet spot, about 60 beats per minute is where we're able to entrain with that. So let me explain what entrainment is for your listeners that don't know what that is. I didn't know what it was initially either, but it's when an internal metronome or an internal tempo can synchronize to an external tempo. In this case, our heart is the metronome within our physical body, and it has the ability to synchronize with music. And so when we're targeting the heart at 60 beats per minute, that's where most of us are at a relaxed state. So that is why I think it's being studied, to show that that's a great tempo for moving into more relaxed, meditative states that are conducive to sleep. And also not a lot of melody and not lyrics with that when you're trying to move to relax or into a sleep state, because we tend to move back into our analytical mind. But if you're looking to work out to music, you're not going to listen to the same music that you are relaxing to, and you're going to target a faster beats per minute. That's usually between 120 to 140 beats per minute, because you want to move your heart into a state where you're going to be burning calories and you're going to increase your heart rate. So again, if you just think of the music as the ability to adapt to specific tempos and your heart can actually follow that, then that's a great starting point for most people. If you want your heart to move faster, in general, you're going to listen to faster music. If you want your heart to move slower, you're going to listen to slower music, because ultimately we adjust our respiratory rate to the rhythm within music, and that gives us the adaptability to move into those smooth, orderly rhythms, or really whatever our targeted states are. And there are times we want to be in sympathetic state, and we need to be in firing and wiring and things to do and get it done. It's not always all about relaxation. For me, the biggest message that I can share that has echoed into my life is, how can you use music to magnify your mission? And whatever your mission is, start plugging it in to whatever you're doing. And it's what I call becoming the DJ of your own life.
I love
Just
that.
like we nourish ourselves with food, and we know what foods in general, most people know, like, oh, this isn't good for me, or I shouldn't be eating this, or I should be eating that. It doesn't really move into becoming transformational until we plug it into a program, until we plug it into something that is practical. And that's really the key of this, is not just like, oh, these studies show this, the studies show that. It's how am I going to incorporate it, plug it into my life, and create changes where I need to.
Is that what you meant by that term you coined, acousticeuticals? Is that right? Do I have that right?
Yeah, so it is acousticeuticals, and in so many of the studies and things that I've looked at, music is low cost, non-invasive, no side effects. So we can utilize it as medicine as well. And I'm not ever suggesting to people go off your medicines or do it in place of, but it's a great support mechanism for a lot of other things that we're using, whether people who are watching are using pharmaceuticals or nutraceuticals. Think of music as an acousticeutical. So it's the acoustics, right? And the ability to apply that into something that we can take on a daily basis, that's not going to create any prolonged negative addictions. So all it can do is create a positive reinforcement habit and, really, really act with targeting not just emotional and mental states or spiritual states, which I think a lot of people are used to with music, but also physical states. And we're seeing more and more research that's geared towards physical changes, objective findings in the physical body that have, are new and exciting. So more than happy to talk a little bit more about that as well.
Yeah. Well, so you mentioned that the heart, 60 beats per minute is good for the heart, but how does that affect the brain? I mean, are we talking about specific frequencies or just the beat of the music that are going to be especially beneficial?
Yeah, so let me circle back to that, because the heart and brain have this communication that's going on that is opening up into a new area of study called neurocardiology. But yeah, so when our heart's moving into those coherent states, it's not just for the benefit of the heart health. It's literally, if you think of the heart as a conductor in the physical body, and think of the heart as an orchestra, the body as an orchestra, with all the different parts of and systems of the body being parts of the orchestra, like the sympathetic system's a part of the orchestra, the lymphatic system, the endocrine systems, they're all parts of this orchestra. If they all played whatever music they wanted to at whatever tempo they wanted to, what you would hear would sound very dissonant or very incoherent. So when the heart can send out these smooth and orderly rhythms, it's literally moving those other systems into more optimal states. So there's a synchrony that's going on, that's happening. That's not just the heart's part of it. The heart's the conductor of it, but it's not just affecting the heart. It's also increasing heart rate variability, which is our measurement of our overall ability to deal with resiliency and stress in our life. And now circling back to that question for the brain, when our heart's moving into these coherent states and these smooth, orderly rhythms, the latest studies are showing that our brain begins to produce more alpha brainwaves as well. So, and alpha brainwaves are more conducive to being relaxed and also being more creative. So these are the states we move to, like within alpha and theta brainwaves, that people refer to as the flow state. And that's when our creative, oh my God, I just got this idea. I can't believe it. I was listening to this piece of music, or even taking a walk in nature and hearing the sounds of nature. It puts people get to it in different states into that flow state, but ultimately that's the sweet spot, is when we're in alpha and theta brainwave states. So, for people who are listening and well, how do I get into those states? The easiest way is what, the bookends. When you wake up in the morning, you're coming out of delta, right? And those are the slowest brainwave states. And so before people pick up their phones and start checking their emails and getting into their to-do lists, I say get more into your to-be list. Stay in that space of what energy do I want to hold those to-do lists today, whether it's motivational if you have a big business meeting, or it's more into a relaxational state, whatever it is that's going to hold the energy of your day. Stay in that state before you start firing and wiring, and bridge into that beta brainwave state. So you bridge from delta to theta into alpha, and then you're moving into a relaxed but attentive state to watch your day. And it's a smooth bridge. And it's the same thing at night before you're going to sleep. Like if you listen to music about an hour before you wind down, and you're going from beta, and then you're bridging down into alpha, slowing down even more into theta, you're going to get to sleep much more efficiently. And studies show you're going to stay asleep even longer if you're using music to bridge that. And so the beginning and end of our day, for moving into flow state and also winding down to restore and rejuvenate at the at the end of your day, we've really lost sight of music being sacred, in our society, where all the ancient and indigenous cultures knew that sleep was a time to restore, to engage your spirituality with ancestors and the divine, whatever your belief systems are with that. Most of us are firing and wiring on our phones and watching TV, and we're crashing from beta brainwave states, into delta. We're getting to sleep very quickly, but we're not staying asleep. And that's why, 75 million people in this country alone have insomnia. And, again, these acousticeuticals, and also a lot of the ancient things that we know about music, chanting, drumming, things that don't require like an enormous investment in technology, are the oldest technologies and the oldest biohacks that we have that we need to re-engage with.
Is this similar to binaural beats? You remember that company?
Yeah, binaural beats are it's different. So that's brain entrainment, right? And so what we're initially talking about is heart entrainment, but brain entrainment is a little bit different. So heart entrainment is basically synchronizing to the beats per minute, the tempo, right? 60 beats per minute, 100 beats per minute. But binaural beats is engaging with the different brainwave states. So I can give you an example of that. If you're targeting, say, alpha brainwaves that start at about 8 hertz. So hertz is the cycle of the wave, in terms of how many times it repeats. 8 hertz is the cycle for alpha, that where it starts at. So binaural beats introduces different frequencies into different sides of your ears, right? So in your left side, if you were targeting, say, that 8 hertz frequency, you might put 100 hertz in one side, 108 in the other. And the brain has the ability to follow the frequency that is between the two. So the difference between the two is 8 hertz. And so that can work within training the brain. And that's what binaural beats was based upon. And one of the main companies that I work with and have released 7 or 8 albums with is Monroe Institute. And they created something that's called HemiSync that works with literally synchronizing the different hemispheres of the brain using binaural beats. Amazing research around it, from everything from the ability to diminish pain, to increase cognitive and emotional well-being, to decrease the effects of PTSD in vets. So again, there's a big body of research that is just amazing. 20 or 30 years ago, there wasn't a ton of research on any of this, but now these methodologies are, beginning to gain a lot of traction in our culture.
Wow. So are you combining the binaural beats with your heart's beats per minute to create like new music?
Yeah, and that's a great question. So yeah, one of the first releases I did with Monroe Institute in 2007 was called Wisdom of the Heart. And most of the releases that I have with HemiSync are both heart and brain entrainment. So, and there is, that's really very powerful when the heart and brain can move into balance and coherence together. Again, that's when you move into these states, these deep states of awareness where you're getting aha moments, your intuition's increased, your cognition's improving, all of these things. So that's a great question, and it's a sweet spot. That's
Yeah.
what I'm talking more about with this advent of neurocardiology as well, and becoming more of an interest, where we used to think of just the brain as holding our intelligence.
Mhm.
Now companies like HeartMath, who have a lot of studies around the heart having its own intelligence, are gaining more influence as we study and say, wow, when the heart's coming down to those relaxed states, of course, our brain's going to follow. Like, it's hard to imagine that we could be in a relaxed state and still firing and wiring in, high beta brainwave states.
Mhm.
For me, it makes common sense that they would interact together and be able to affect each other.
Right. Can I ask one more thing too? So then,
Sure.
do you think that when you're listening to this music that your brain adapts and then you need to like move on to another level, or do you just listen to this same music that resonates with you to get in those states, and that's just something you can listen to forever?
I mean, I think it's like regular, like traditional music as well,
Mhm.
where the composition becomes a really important ingredient in terms of moving us to these states. Because obviously, if you get tired of a piece of music,
Mhm.
and I'm sure this has happened for most of us, I remember as a kid, like when I heard the singles on the radio of a song, that's what drove me to like buy like a new Billy Joel album or a new
Mhm.
Bruce Springsteen album. But as I listened to and heard those songs more on the radio, those became my least favorite. Right? My least preferred music was the
Right.
ones I heard over and over again. So I would say that same effect can occur with any piece of music. So if you start listening to it and it's no longer relaxing you because you're not enjoying it, there's also studies that are showing that music acts as a reward for us as well. And when we're in that state of feeling like we're happy with a piece of music or we're rewarded by it, we also start producing or increase our production of dopamine, which is associated with, our pleasure centers and our rewards. So it's not as cut and dry. It's just like you really have to listen to yourself. And preferred music is being studied more and more as well. The music that you love is very powerful as well. And especially like when you start looking at like Alzheimer's patients and people who have dementia, their loved ones are putting together playlists for them of music that they preferred before the Alzheimer's or dementia. And literally, we're seeing this increased neuroplasticity and new neural pathways to engage memory as well. So, I might ask someone who's experiencing dementia, do you remember Christmas in 1972? And they can't answer. But if I play them White Christmas because it was a song they loved, all of a sudden you're seeing these memories come back and this cognition. So we have to remember that music's a language,
Mhm.
but it succeeds with Alzheimer's and dementia where traditional language doesn't in many ways. So again, lots of studies around this. There are studies as well with chanting with Alzheimer's patients that show that a chant called the Kirtan Kriya,
Mhm.
which you might have heard of. It's the sa ta na ma when we're doing a mudra and we're literally, placing our fingers as well. So there's a physical aspect of it. And we're singing for 2 minutes, that we're whispering for 2 minutes, then we're going to silence for 2 minutes, repeating that mantra in our head, and then the other way around. So for 12 minutes, the Alzheimer's organization showed that this was increasing cognition. It was getting better sleep with Alzheimer's patients. It was even increasing telomeres, which basically, are, measure our longevity as well.
Yeah.
So, and this is from a chant, this is like nothing you don't even have to go out and buy a crystal bowl. Like I did this chant with my father-in-law who's 91 years old when he was going through like a divorce at 89. And right, whenever he was stressed out, I would say, Daddy Don, let's take a walk around the block and do the Kirtan Kriya. And we'd be like, sa, ta, na, ma. And when we came back and measured his blood pressure, his blood pressure had gone down. So,
Incredible.
these are not anecdotal. These are like objective, big studies.
Yeah, documented with data.
Mhm.
So if somebody is new to the field, like you're introducing me to a whole bunch of things I had never considered about music. Like, where do you get started?
Yeah, so I work with a lot of entrepreneurs as well. And there's always pushback regarding time. Well, I don't have the time to that. Who has like the time to like create, playlists like for every day and everything that I want to do? So I would say the simplest thing to start them off, or anybody off who you get pushback with in terms of time. But of course, the old, there's an old saying that was anonymous. I think it was through Hindu cultures. Like if you don't have time to meditate for 5 minutes a day, you should be meditating for an hour a day. Right. So it's similar, right? I mean, if you don't have 15 minutes to start your day, then obviously you're experiencing like a lot of timelines and deadlines and stress that's going on in your life. But I always say start with what I call the happy song.
Mm-hmm.
So the happy song is like a musical pinnacle that literally defines our life. Like we all have at least one song that if it doesn't make you happy, it at least elevates your mood or transitions you into a better mood. Like mine is the Jackson 5, The Love You Save. Right? So when I listen to that song, I can't help but be in a good mood. And research shows that even me talking about that or thinking about that, like I'm already hearing it in my head, has benefits of it almost as strong as listening to the piece of music. That's how powerful it is. So for those people who are listening, like what's your happy song? What's one song that brings you into the state? And if you are sharing this on your threads and your social media threads as well, I invite people to start posting them, into the threads, because then now you have 100 different happy songs that you get from other people that you can plug in. And before you know it, like now you have a happy song playlist and you didn't have to do anything.
I love that. Yeah.
So that's initial. But for those people who feel that they have, wow, I'd really like to, play with this and experiment a little bit more. What I suggest is think of music as nutrition. Like just as you nourish yourself 3 times a day, what would happen if you started by nourishing yourself with music 3 times a day? And begin by creating 3 song playlists. One to start your day. So just like you break your fast in the morning by eating food, and you ask yourself, well, hopefully you ask yourself, what food do I want to put into my body to start my day? It's the same question, like what music do I want to start my day with? Because you're breaking the fast of not hearing anything for 8 hours. So what do I really want to start my day with? And it really requires, not that we don't do it already, it requires looking at your schedule, which looks, most people are constantly looking at their schedule. What would happen if you looked at your schedule the night before, and based on what you have going on in the morning, you're adapting your playlist to that. So, if you need to go see a loved one in the hospital, maybe you just really want to be in a soft, compassionate state and you want to listen to a piece of relaxing music to start your day, and that's part of your playlist. But if you have a meeting where you're going to be pitching sales to someone or talking to your team, maybe you want it to be more up. So, or maybe you want it to be a hybrid. So like a hybrid 3-song playlist that I would create for gratitude would be Sly and the Family Stone, Thank You for Letting Me Be Myself, Louis Armstrong, What a Wonderful World. And then I have a very relaxing piece of music that I composed that's the intention of it was behind gratitude, that I call the Heart Codes. So that's a great 3-song, playlist to start your day. in gratitude. And then, as you move on in your day, just as like your lunch re-energizes and revitalizes you, I would suggest like during lunch, if you're really stressed out, again, do you need to listen to a piece of relaxing music that is going to recenter you and move you back into your heart? Or do you need to get up and move, because you've been behind a computer all day? So again, studies show us that when you are dancing to music, that actually improves cognition and your ability to focus. And coming into the space of gratitude actually works with those parts of the brain that increase your judgment. So again, studies around all of this. And that's like lunch, right? You're revitalizing or restoring your energy. Or for those people who like listening to different music from around the world, I call it a 5-minute vacation. And I started initiating this during COVID when I was like locked down and I was stuck in the same four walls. I was like, what would happen if I listened to music that was from another part of the world and created a multi-sensory experience where I was like smelling what it would smell like, by the beach in Costa Rica, what the ocean would smell like. What teas would I be drinking that are native to the land? What would it feel like? So engaging my 5 senses. And so if you listen to a piece of music from another part of the world for 5 minutes in the middle of your day, you literally shift your environment. Like you can close your eyes and engage with those senses. And when you come back, I swear to you, it literally is like taking a vacation. Like you feel completely refreshed.
Wow. I've never thought of that. That's so cool.
Yeah. And then at night, I think of night, like kind of like dessert, so again, 3 times a day, morning, afternoon, and evening. And evening, think of it as something sweet to nurture your soul, So like dessert, you have just a little something sweet, after you eat, whether it's a fruit or whatever, whatever it is. It kind of satisfies you to like wind down at night and, however you want to wind down. That's really the time to start de-escalating your energy and listening to that music at 60 beats per minute. But sometimes it's good to meet yourself where you're at because you're coming out of high beta. And you want to bridge down. So you can start by listening to music that's similar to like yoga music, where it has some gentle rhythm in it. It's not quite fully relaxational, but a great bridge to that. And then you just kind of keep, getting more minimalistic to slow the brain waves down. And I have a lot of playlists that are geared toward this, like on my Spotify channel, like music to wind down playlist, music for sleep playlist. I did music with Dr. Daniel Amen that works with all of this that was used for PBS specials as well. So it's kind of easy to find for people who don't want to create their own playlist. You can go to my channels and literally, they're there kind of waiting for you in Spotify. So.
I love that. So do you think that if you're someone who, I can see like your recommendations for someone who doesn't meditate, that would be just perfect. But what if you're also trying to incorporate meditation into your morning and evening routines? Would you say that it's more benefit? There's all different types of meditation, and some of them you're just it's silent, but then some of them are guided. You're listening to somebody talking to a trying to hypnotize you, and then to a guided meditation. Do you think that listening to something guided with music is more beneficial than just being in silence?
Again, it's individual, it's just like medicine. We could have 30 people who all have diabetes, but the treatments can be slightly varied based on different, levels of diabetes. Is it type 1? Is it type 2? If a person has never meditated before and they have a hard time meditating, then taking them into doing transcendental meditation right away might be challenging for them to listen in silence. But again, like I've worked with Dr. Joe Dispenza, and his meditations are all guided. and people find them very powerful, especially for new meditators. Sometimes you need that, think about what a guide is. If someone was guiding us on a tour, they would let us know what's all around us, things we have to look out for. They're kind of giving us the lay of the land because they're familiar with whatever it is they're showing us. So it's the same thing. If you have an expert mentor who knows what states that you're trying to target within a guided meditation, like, Dr. Joe Dispenza, who's incredible and has done the research, and he knows what the outcomes are that he's looking for in every meditation, then why not try it? Yeah. But again, some people, people like different voices, people like different music, so as I said at the beginning, like I was an experiment. You have to be willing to experiment and not just like whatever habits you're going through that have caused stress. Sorry, my New York is coming out. Caused right, stress to come out in your life, or negative sleep patterns or anxiety. It's taken years for you to, to program, bad habits or, lower vibrational habits. So a lot of times people try one thing and they go, oh, it didn't work. And they spend 30 years getting to that place where they're trying to break a habit, but they won't even spend 30 days into trying to reprogram something. So if something doesn't work, maybe it's just that person or that piece of music. You have to continue to experiment until you find something that's going to work for you. And most people do, especially with music and meditation. Like people know what music they like and what they don't. They can listen to a minute of music and say, oh, I don't like that piece of music. Maybe that's why I'm not getting to a meditative state, or I don't like his voice, or, I don't like the technique, whatever it is. But you have to have like the curiosity of a child. Kids don't they say, I don't like it, but then maybe they'll try a different thing, or a different food. And they're just like very open and they have fun with it. Most kids anyway.
I told my kids they have to try something like 3 to 5 times, because the first time you might not like it, but if you try it again. And just like Joe Dispenza's, when I first listened to his stuff, I was like, I don't know if I like this. But then once I, kept seeing him everywhere and watched one of his Rewired shows about the brain, and then I listened to one of his books, I was like, okay, he's doing this for a reason, to get us into these different alpha brainwave states. So now when I do his meditations, I can literally feel like tingles inside of my body, which has never happened to me during transcendental meditations or any other type. So, and I do think that it's because of the music and the timing and what he's having us think about and stuff. I know that it's powerful stuff right now. It's so exciting.
Yeah, and like we've done research, when I first started working with Dr. Joe, they were brain mapping people, and he wrote the foreword to my book. He said, how I know Barry's music works is because we brain map people and we actually saw the results. So music can take you there very quickly. But it's also a lot more complex, than it is. So there's not always a black and white answer, because each one of us has autobiographical memories around not just music, but sound. So, and studies show this, that music creates autobiographical memories, just like when you listen to the song that you were married to, and 30 years later, you can actually feel yourself going down the aisle with that person and see the people around you who loved you. Hopefully, people who have pleasant experiences around their marriages. And I'm sure for people who don't, it's the same thing. I don't want to ever hear that song again because it reminds me of, someone that you got divorced from. But that's exactly what I'm saying, is we carry these autobiographical memories that are very powerful with music, but also people's voices and tones of people's voices, So if you grew up with a domineering father, that yelled a lot, hearing a male voice in a guided meditation might not work for you. So you might be triggered by that and feel like, oh, wow, for some reason that feels controlling, without even realizing that you're holding on to that on a subconscious level. But if your mom was like really nurturing to you and said, honey, you know what, that art's beautiful. Whatever you did was beautiful, right? You might like a female voice, or the other way around. You could have a domineering mom, and a nurturing father. But we carry all these memories with us. Our brain, how it reacts to sound is amazing. So that's why I'm not giving you like, okay, well, no, just do this or just do that. Yeah, there's some guidelines that we know that work, like with, music 60 beats per minute, targeting different brainwave states with binaural beats, chanting, all these have studies behind them. But ultimately, if you don't like a piece of music, it's not going to matter what the study shows, because you're just going to shut down and you're going to move into a contracted state for whatever reason. So there's ingredients. You have to like the music. It has to be, at a beats per minute that's conducive to what you're targeting. And, that's where learning more about this. And that's, what I teach as well with courses is it's not a 30-minute, interview. It's like, these are like full day workshops. I do week-long retreats around sound where we're drumming, and doing things with tuning forks, with the chakras. And, this is like anyone can get into it, on a level that's going to create transformation. But if, you want to dive deeper into the healing aspects of sound, it's more of a way of life, and something that you are like, oh, wow, I want to learn more about this.
When you're composing, say, for a film, or maybe even a business, or working with Dr. Joe to create music for his huge event, is it a different approach? Are you factoring in other types of things?
I think it starts with a similar approach, but of course I'm going to fine tune it, based on a lot of things. What's interesting is when I'm doing music for guided meditations, it is a film, except you're not seeing any pictures. So it's even more challenging, right? Because when I'm composing for a film, I can do things off the cue of what I'm seeing in there, especially facial expression where I want to really tug at the heartstrings, or, an action scene where we're wanting to create something more epic. We can see it. So there's another sense that you have that is actually in a way easier to compose for film than it is for meditations, because when you're describing something in a meditation, now I have to create music that looks like it. Like what would that sound look like if someone was envisioning that?
Wow.
So, it can be tricky, but ultimately it does start from the same premise. Where do we want, the person, where are they now before they're listening to the meditation, or where are they now before they're going into this scene in the film? Like, are they coming out of a scene that was like really sad? Are they coming out of a scene that was happy? Like, knowing where they are emotionally is important. And then where do we want to take them in that scene, whether it's a guided meditation or a scene in music? It's the outcome. And then really saying, okay, well, what needs to be incorporated here musically? Do I want to incorporate rhythm and drums? Do I want to incorporate a cello, that's going to, open up the heart space? Do I want it to just really be very ambient and almost like no music at all? And I want the words to carry more energy, and I don't want the attention to go to listening at all, but I do want something there. And, that is ultimately the power of collaboration. When you're working with someone, like a Dr. Joe or a Daniel Amen or a Dave Asprey or whoever it is, they know what their audience, where they want to take their audience. And so we're collaborating. We're going back and forth and saying, oh, I love that part, but you know what, maybe we can just make that drum sound a little bit louder. So when that hits, I want people to feel that, in every cell of their body. So we're almost there, right? That's collaboration. And the same in a film, after looking at the scene, you might say, okay, that's not quite what I was looking for. I think I want them to be more engaged mentally there. I don't want them falling asleep. So can we add things that are going to, keep their attention a little bit more. I don't want them to go into a trance state. And ultimately that's the fun for me, or else every project would be exactly the same.
Mm-hmm.
Comes in collaboration and synergy and people who know their audiences and their platforms. And that's really a similar approach to even working with musical branding and sonic signatures,
Mm-hmm.
things like that. Look at a company like Netflix, who has
You're
the
reading
big
my
band,
mind, literally.
right? That's the biggest thing that, example I can give someone
Yeah.
of a sonic signature. Like if I played that for you now, would you even have to look
No.
right at the end,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or when your computer starts up with an Apple computer,
Mm-hmm.
right? That startup sound, all these sounds, Microsoft, all these companies spend months and months literally finding the perfect sound that they feel is right for their platform to engage in what resonates with their mission.
Yeah.
So and that's all collaboration and really finding that unique thing that when you see it and hear it, that's it, right? But
Yeah.
how long did it take Netflix to come up with that, in terms of the combination for you to get to that point where it's recognizable and
Well,
it becomes an autobiographical memory, just like
yes. And you were reading my mind right there, because that was going to be my next thing, was to talk about the branding and the marketing aspect of sound and music, because just like how I can hear a song from when I was a kid and remember the word, like I can't remember the words if you asked me the words to a song, but the minute I hear the melody, I'm like singing all the words. And so if really great marketing is trying to take you through memorization of their brand, I can see how
Mhm.
powerful music can be, because just like the Netflix sound, I hear that and I'm like, oh, Netflix is on. And so that's wonderful, right? How can, if you're a small business person though, and maybe you're in this wellness space, do you need a sound signature, or do you need a jingle, or do you need to, is there a benefit to incorporating music somehow in your business, or what would you,
Yeah.
advice
Well,
would you
I,
give
I,
them?
I mean, I absolutely think there's a benefit, or else, like, why would the big companies be doing it,
Yeah.
right? If they didn't think there was a benefit for it. And I think that we're coming into that space where we're seeing the impact and the research on sound.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of times, I'll be honest with you, it's the last thing people are thinking of,
Mm-hmm.
because they're spending all their marketing money and their dollars on the graphic branding of things.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, and now of course I'm biased because I'm a sound designer and I create sonic signatures for people as well. Ultimately, I think that the sonic signature is more important than even the graphics, because music engages us more emotionally.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as we hear something, it can engage you. Like most of the sonic signatures are 8 seconds or less, right? Of that, like Netflix logo is probably 3 seconds
Mm-hmm.
in terms of that. So if you could really, when I'm doing sonic signatures for entrepreneurs, I'm like listening, like what's important to your business? And what types of, they go through a whole quiz of telling me, what their audience is and what type of music they like, what's symbolic of their mission, what's the demographics of their audience. And we're basically coming up with something that's representative of whatever their mission is. And that's important for founders as well, because if they feel good about that sonic signature every time they hear it, they're playing it before they go on stage to speak, or, it's everywhere. It's being branded across all their platforms. How is that going to ripple out
Mm-hmm.
and affect everything else? But again, like that's the first thing people, like I had a web designer tell someone, well, do that after, right? After you spend the 50 grand on your website. And then, they didn't have anything left for their sonic signature.
Mm-hmm.
And their site wasn't even where they wanted it to be after all of that. So I say, if you're going to create a new site, a new logo, like budget in for it beforehand and have it go into your thought process, because just like picking anything that you think works with it
Mm-hmm.
is not, sometimes it could have a negative impact, picking the wrong sound or the wrong music with videos. And so I have a site called sonic-signatures.com. And on that site, I have literally the same scene of music. It's a 30-second piece or 30-second piece, the same exact scene that happens with 3 different pieces of music. Not right or wrong, but one of them, you feel like it is like a killer movie where, the girl in the film, it's raining and, it's like very tense. The next one, the music is like a love story. And the other one is one where it's just uplifting. Same exact scene. And you would swear that the visuals for them were all exactly right on. That one where you think, oh my God, she's about to go out and commit a crime. Oh my God, she's in love. Oh my God, she's inspired. And so that's how powerful music is. And if you're using, like I see people use all the time, in their YouTube videos, using music that they think works and it doesn't. It's either like overly dramatic, over inspirational, or it's sad when it's supposed to be like uplifting because they use like a cello in a minor key of a song. And the music sounds good, but
bad.
People don't realize, well, why doesn't that work? Oh, it must be the graphics. I spent thousands of dollars on it. Yeah. Or it could be because you bought or licensed a piece of stock music for $10 and it's the wrong piece of music. So
Barry, we live in a crazy time with AI and people
AI, what's that?
They can create their own music. So where do you see it all going? What's the future look like from your point of view?
Well, I mean, I think it's the same. We're seeing a lot of the same things across AI, whether it's from music or art or whatever else, that it's not really meant to replace, people. It's meant to be collaborative. And I think we're moving into a place initially where it's such a novelty that, people are going to just plug it in, go to Suno, spit out a song and, think it's the greatest thing since white bread. But people who have been developing methodologies and expertise and are at the top of their tiers in whatever they do. So becoming a mastery at anything you do is always going to be important, whether it's in AI or anything else. So people are watching this, kids who are watching this who are coming up or younger people coming up. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't become a master, because those are the people, like my business is booming even more that AI is out, because people who don't want AI are realizing, wow, I want something highly customized. And that not only AI, but what I call this easy, EASI, right? So emotional and spiritual intelligence along with AI is really important. So if you don't have the emotional intelligence and the spiritual intelligence, so for me, one of the biggest aha moments I had was when I realized in those meditative states, which is where we started this conversation, was I was creating with something beyond myself. It wasn't just me saying, okay, I'm going to move into a meditative state. What I realized was I was connecting to an unlimited field of all potentials that I had access to. And so there's what we know and there's what we don't know. And AI is basically tapping into all the things that we know. It's a record of everything that is being trained upon. But how do you explain things like moving into flow state? How do you explain the things that we don't know? And, having a spiritual connection. All these things go into music. And most people understand that when you're listening to a piece of music from a composer and you hear like a crack in that composer's voice during a specific lyric, it's because that meant something to him in that moment. And you're like, oh my God, when I hear that one part of the song, I get like chills, like up and down my spine. You can hear that same piece of music by 10 different artists, and you might not have the same effect.
Mm.
That's because music's a carrier of information.
Mm-hmm.
It's carrying the information of the composer, their emotional state that they were in, the intention of that composer. If I want to compose a piece of music that is in the state of love, but I had just had a fight with my wife and I'm going in to compose that piece, is that recorded? Do people feel that and pick up on that? So it's my belief that the answer is yes for all those things. All those subtle things, music carries that information. So if there's not a person in the room, and maybe, we're going to be finding out more about this as we go on, but if it's just being created based on a prompt, will we eventually be able to get to a point where we're feeling or seeing or hearing the difference of that? Like, I already am getting to the point where I can see a piece of art and say, oh, that's AI generated.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Right. I mean, I'm sure you guys are too. When it first came out, oh my God, that's incredible. But now we're kind of like, oh, that's like AI generated. It's great, right? But we're already getting saturated. And I think the same things is going to happen as well down the line with music. I don't know that we're there yet, because I don't even know if we've got to that point where it's getting really good. But I think still the most powerful music that we'll hear with AI are going to be hybrid creations, where we're collaborating with AI. And maybe instead of just a whole AI piece of music, I'll just have an AI cello player or an AI cello part, and maybe I'll decide, well, that part is really great, but you know what? I just really want to have a live cello player play it. So maybe I'll have AI flush out the ideas, but I would still love to bring in live musicians to create the part. But maybe it saves me some time in the studio ironing out some of my ideas. Again, I'm not giving people any answers by any means, because I don't know. I'm just going into this with an open mind and an open heart, like a child. Oh, this could be fun. This could be another tool. This could be like another sound library. And what you have to realize is musicians have been adapting and pivoting on technology for decades. This is nothing new to us. When people started using electric guitars, it was like, oh my God, that's like the devil's music. Rock and roll is like the devil's music, and amplifiers. The guy that I worked with, Les Paul, was one of the inventors of the electric guitar that literally like reshaped, history. He also invented multi-track recording, which has our ability to overlayer things. When that came out, people were like, oh my God, that's going to be like the death of music, because you don't have to have all the players in one room. Yeah. So they can literally do their own parts. That was like the AI of then.
Yeah.
And then MIDI, what's called MIDI, where we were literally now like using our keyboard to trigger other sounds like strings or piano sounds or voices. Oh no, that was going to be the death of music.
Yeah.
Right. So that's going to be the death of composers, or drum machines. That's going to be the death of drummers. None of it happened. Right. We didn't see a death of music happen. Musicians adapt. Musicians pivot.
AI doesn't have a point of view, so it's boring ultimately. But I want to ask you something. You mentioned tapping into unlimited possibilities. And it got me thinking about near-death experiences. And I'm not sure if you've ever heard some of these people talk about their experiences.
Oh, yeah.
They almost always refer to some kind of celestial music. Have you noted that? I mean, it's almost that the deepest, most primitive aspect of our being is musical. That's what it made me think of. And you referenced spirituality here, so
I mean, there's a big spiritual aspect to this. I mean, just to tread backwards, like none of this would have happened for me if it wasn't a spiritual experience. And science and spirituality, that's the exciting part, it's not like, oh, there's science behind this. Oh, there's like new technologies. Is that there's an intersection now of science and spirituality. The things that we learned thousands of years ago in spirituality, like the Kirtan Kriya, chanting Om, drumming, right? We're seeing all this now. Go online, look at PubMed, type in drumming studies, type in chanting studies. So science wasn't first. Science is catching up to spirituality. It's not the other way around.
Right.
And my belief is that the blueprint of music in general was to have a more deep and profound relationship with whatever your spiritual beliefs are. Like, why do you think Gregorian chanting happened in churches? Why do you think cantillation happened in the Hebrew religion? Right? Because it amplifies, it creates a resonance that's even more powerful than the possibility of speaking it. Yeah. So when you look at near-death experiences, it's not surprising that there would be some type of music that might be heard, in that journey, and that could be another whole interview that we do.
Yeah.
Because like I worked with Anita Murjani, who has probably one of the most famous near-death experiences that's been documented, and medical charts have been shown by Oz, right, when Oz had his show, to show like the inexplicable brain scans and scans of her neck that literally she had tumors the size of lemons, that she had a 90% remission within weeks of her near-death experience. And I've done 2 meditation albums with Anita. If you go to my YouTube channel, there's an interview with Anita and she explains the music that she heard, and that in her words, that it was very similar to the music that I did and composed for her, and that's why she resonated, with it. So ultimately, we are tapping into something beyond ourselves, and it's not just woo anymore, it's not woo, and it hasn't been woo, even it maybe has been underneath the radar of people wanting to talk about it, but even people like Einstein, who was a musician who played the violin and piano, and there are literally excerpts from his son's memoirs who document Einstein when he felt like he had a block and he couldn't get something, and he would pick up his violin or play chords on a piano, and they would hear him from the other room say, "I got it."
Oh.
Right. So what was he, I can't put words in his mouth and say he was tapping into that, but what was going on there in that moment, was in terms of moving out of the analytical brain and music to, connecting us to, or clearing our brain to move us to more peaceful states. And even the chanting of Om, studies show that it moves us into what's called limbic deactivation. In brain scan studies, they did a group that chanted S, and then they had another group that chanted Om, I'm sorry. And in this, the group that chanted S, there was absolutely no benefit in the brain. No additional areas of the brain lit up outside of the traditional centers. But when chanting Om, the areas of the brain that were associated with inner peace and deactivating the limbic system lit up.
Wow.
So, that's again, if you ask someone in corporate America or someone who wasn't open to all this, what's probably one of the most biggest things they might consider woo, if I came into a corporate audience and said, okay, we're going to be chanting Om today. Right. I mean, but again, I speak at medical conferences. When I give the science behind it, we had 200 doctors standing up and chanting a chant I created called Om Shalom Hum.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, my belief is that we're always tapping into something beyond ourselves, whether you call it nature or you call it the unlimited field of all potential, whether you call it God or Buddha or Christ. We always have the ability to collaborate and to move into these states, whether it's walking in nature or being underneath a beautiful starlit sky at night. Don't you feel like more possibilities and potential when you're in that vast state of expansiveness? Because, oh my God, I'm just like a speckle in the universe. Like, look at all these stars.
Mm-hmm.
How can you not think that there's more potential
Mm-hmm.
than whatever creative block you have? So imagine what would happen if you decided to amplify that into your life and not just say, oh my God, that's a random experience. I was under that beautiful night sky in Sedona.
Mm-hmm.
You took the next step and you said, I'm going to invite this unlimited space, source, potential into everything I do,
Right.
into every collaboration. And, I'm going to invite this source in. And that's literally what happened, again, circling back to 35 years ago, or 30 years ago when I started this. I didn't know it at the time, but I was inviting something to co-create with me because I was hitting a dead wall and I was not happy with music. And I just wanted to reconnect with that kid who sat on the edge of his bed and was inspired by just writing songs again.
Wow.
And so that was an invitation to saying, I don't know. I don't know what's happening here, but I don't like it.
Mm-hmm.
And in that state of not knowingness is, where that beautiful spiritual sweet spot was that changed my life. Because when I felt it and connected to it, and then later on realized what I have access to this in everything that I do, that's where the power came in. And I couldn't rewind. I couldn't go back to the before picture because I had that connection and experience already. It's hard to go back when you've had these experiences.
Yeah, you can't go back because you now know what you know. And so you can't unknow what you know.
That's right. Yeah.
Well,
and
oh
you
my
still a
gosh.
lot that you don't know that,
Yeah.
that is really where the collaborations come in and where I feel like the most powerful collaborations with AI and all these are going to be from the knowing and the not knowing.
Mm-hmm.
And, as long as we hold on to our excitement with not knowing and we just don't, part of creation is not always just seeking answers,
Mm-hmm.
but part of creation is finding great questions as well.
Oh my gosh, that's so great. I feel like we could keep talking for hours, but just knowing I want to, be considerate of your time too. Maybe with one last question.
Sure.
I know
sure,
that you have a
absolutely.
book called The Secret Language of the Heart. Maybe you could just give us one takeaway from that book, and then also let us know how we can get a hold of you and your programs that you have.
Sure. So I think one of the most powerful takeaways for me is, and was the biggest aha moment in writing this book, is that music is not just something that happens to us, it's something that's happening in us. And so thinking of your heartbeat, your breath, your sigh out as part of your internal symphony that's constantly going on in your life. That's where I start with in my book, because if you can tune in on a daily basis and just place your hands on your heart, close your eyes, feel your own heartbeat, hear your own breath. Although we all have a heartbeat, we all have a breath. Each one of ours is unique to us. So this is kind of like a coming home. And no matter what's going on in your day, if you can connect with these internal sounds and go, wow, that day was tough, but I have my heartbeat, I have my breath. I hear that sigh out, which I call a soul sound, when we go, right? It's kind of like our soul saying, hey, it's going to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
That if we can connect with that on a daily basis, that then listening to music comes in a much more amplified way, because we learn to listen to the sounds within our body. So everything ripples out from there. If you listen to those internal sounds, you hear music in an all new way on such a subtle level that the nuances go beyond hearing with your ears, and you begin to hear with your physical body. And that's where the power of music in this way, music as a tool for transformation and healing comes in, because then you can feel it in your body. Like, oh my God, I heard that piece of music. I don't know like what happened there, but
Mhm.
I just felt like tension like move out of my leg,
Yeah.
like where people were having pain, or my lower back. I get that all the time for like people who are using my music during like chemo treatments, or they're using it like in hospice. These are physical things that they're saying, but I think it comes from like an inner awareness of the life force within us is music. So again, music's not just happening to you, it's happening in you, and you're the conductor of it. You're the DJ of your life with it. You're the one who, is creating the program for your own musical nutrition. So every day is different with it, and just like the most powerful medicine is individualized, just keep looking at it individually. And if I can help in any way, I have free YouTube channels that have teachings on them. Spotify, I'm on Apple, but I also do have courses that, you can get to everything from my site, barrygoldsteinmusic.com. So everything from very short courses to full day courses to sonic signatures. And for those of you who are interested in branding and film and all of that.
Very
Oh my
cool.
gosh. Well, thank you. It was such a pleasure talking to you and getting to know you, Barry. I appreciate you so much.
Well, same here. You guys have great questions, and just love the energy that both of you bring. So thank you for sharing with your audience as well.
Yeah, I had no idea that's what you did.
See that? Well, when we met many years ago, right? A
Oh,
lot,
inspiring. I'm just
well,
like,
a lot can also happen in a
for sure.
10-year period, right?
Yeah,
A lot can happen
thank
in 10 years. So,
thank you
but I
so much.
appreciate that.
Okay. Take care.